Hey guys, we're back again. You probably recognize my editing PC from the other day. We took a look at this thing because it was overheating whenever I was rendering videos out, and we ended up replacing the thermal paste. Whenever I turned the AC on, everything was fine and it pumped out the videos. And I mentioned in that video that I would be changing out the CPU in a couple of days. What I've got here is the Ryzen 7 5800X. Of course, it does not come with a CPU cooler, so went out and got myself a Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4 to take care of that. Now, this will be a better solution than what was in here, so that's going to be pretty good for me. I'll probably keep my temperatures at a much more manageable range. Since I'm going to be switching processors and getting a better cooler, I want to have another look at this and kind of see what scores I get on this. And I will rerun the same render that I ran with this when we were looking at the cooling and see what time I get on that. That took 12 minutes and 38 seconds to render. We will look at that again with the CPU though and see what we get. So, no further ado, I'm going to swap these things out and then we'll get back to those numbers and see what kind of improvements we have after we upgrade to the 5800X. Hey guys, it's me again. Apparently, in the process of recording this video, I ran into some issues where I think I just forgot to hit the button, or I might have double-clicked the button, and I didn't record a good chunk of the video where I had ran into some issues. There was an issue with the size of the cooler. I was unable to install it while it was in the case. I couldn't get my hand down into the side of the case because there was a fan in the way, but I managed to get the screw stuck onto a magnetic screwdriver and get down in there and screw in both sides, and I kind of got it working that way, and I was excited. And then I started trying to put the fan in, and I couldn't get the bracket in there because I still needed to get my hand down in there. And even after removing that fan, it still just was not enough room for me to get down in there and get that bracket into place as it needed to be. So that led to me having to take the motherboard all the way out of the case, and somewhere in the process of all of that, I managed to bend the pins on the USB header for the front side USB ports, and I didn't know that I had done that until I had put everything back into the case again and was trying to plug those in. And at first I was upset that I did that, but I thought about it and decided that in the process of making these videos, it's very rare that I would even use that anyways, because when I did have to take my external SSD into the house and transfer the files over to the computer, then I always plugged into the back. And I thought some more about it, and I was like, you know what, over the course of the next few days, as I do these things, I probably won't need to use those ports. However, I will run into an issue where I do need to use this computer because I have a video I need to edit, I have some other things that needs to go on, I need to upload. I still have a few of the PCs that I work on that need to be put onto eBay, so a whole list of other things that needs to happen that I won't need those USB ports for. So I just went ahead and just went with it, put the computer back together, and that footage didn't actually get recorded, so I apologize for that, but now you're back to the real video. Okay, so I've managed to get everything working like I wanted it to. One thing I forgot to do before I put everything back together and set it back into here was I forgot to update the BIOS first. So, whoops, ran into a little issue there. But lucky for me, this board actually has a flash BIOS button on it. So, it worked out for me that I was able to get on a different computer, download the updated latest version of the BIOS for this board, put it on a flash drive, plug it into the appropriate USB port on the back of this that is labeled BIOS update, and with everything turned off, you hit the button, everything spins up in here, and then after a few seconds it will power down and start back up. After that, we passed the CPU test on here, we went to the next test, and that one passed. The thing restarted and came back up. Did that like maybe twice. Passed all the tests, got into the system, everything was good. I ran Cinebench, and I beat my score by 400 points, and then I ran it again, and for some reason it tied with my old CPU, and I was like, what? How is... So, I was a little confused by that. Ran it a few times though, and we got about 54 and like, what was it, 54.27 I think was what I worked out the average was on it, once I excluded the one where I actually tied with the 3800X. So I went in, I tweaked the overclock a little bit on it, pushed it a little bit too far a couple of times, had to reset the CMOS. Once that was done, I got one that actually worked. I went in and tried it, and we came out almost exactly 500 points above. It was 5,507 was one of my runs, 5501, I had 5580s, 5570s, or 5480s, 5470s. The average on it ended up coming out to 5483-ish, I think, or 84-ish, I think is what it was. The old one worked out to be, it was right around the 5,000, but it leaned more towards to 4,000, 49, 87, and this one, whenever I worked out the actual average, it came out to 54.83. So it was a few points off from being exactly 500 points worth of improvement. So cool, I guess that was a win on that. I went into Davinci Resolve and I loaded up the exact same render that I did last time, and the 11 minutes and 30 something seconds that it was, I said that earlier in this video, but that was a day ago, so maybe 2 days ago, I don't remember. Anyways, that number that I said, 11 and a half minutes-ish or whatever, is now 7 minutes and 2 seconds. So that was good. Got a pretty decent improvement on there. I will most likely end up encoding in H.265 and using the NVIDIA encoder anyways, because I like the smaller file size that I'm able to get off of that. So I won't be hitting this thing too hard anyways, but it was a nice improvement. The other thing is the temperatures. This has a much bigger cooler on it than the other one did, and I guess I have to talk about that because I know before I had mentioned that I wanted to possibly water cool this, and I did have every intention of doing that, but whenever I started adding up all the things that I was going to get for water cooling this system, I ended up getting the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4. Yeah, all the parts for it, whenever you figured in the fittings, the tubing, everything was going to end up being more than what I actually paid for the whole CPU. So I went a little bit cheaper on this one just because I was trying to stay within my budget, and this is working out great. Our temperatures on this did not go above 80.6 degrees Celsius. So a fine improvement over the 103 or the 100.3 that we was finishing out at before. Now, I'm going to I have another board laying around that I was playing around with before. I mentioned it in a previous video where I did a mock-up build of a, well, I think I called it the 5950, but basically I was pretending I had a Ryzen 5000 series, because at that time I was like, yeah, I'm never getting a Ryzen 5000 series. That's not in the cards for me. And so now I have a Ryzen 5000 series. So I'll take my 3000 series and drop into that old board, and it will probably sit back here. I'll figure out which case I want to put it into. But that'll be what I do coming forward, is probably that. So if you're interested in seeing that, then make sure you stick around. If you like what you're seeing in these videos and you want to see more of these things where we tinker around with stuff here and try not to break stuff, give us that thumbs up. Let us know what you're thinking in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.